Welcome back to another episode of the Tech Talks Daily Podcast. I'm your host, Neil C. Hughes. And if you're thinking about doing things differently in your business in 2024, I've got a quick shout out for Mac lovers. If you're a business leader, chances are that you've probably had to confront the question of whether you should bring Macs into the enterprise. Because yes, it is a PC world, maybe a Chromebook world in some organisations, but there's no avoiding the fact that some users prefer Mac devices and their platforms. So, when I was looking at learning more about how businesses can adopt Mac across their business and its upsides and overcoming challenges and complications, I came across a podcast created by SHI, and it's called We Got Your Mac. Essentially, We Got Your Mac is a podcast that is trying to help business leaders understand the pros and cons of Mac adoption. And the hosts, Victoria Barber and Kevin English, they lead their listeners on a journey from discovery to deployment with thought leaders and specialists from the world of Apple Mac. So they explore questions like, is your employee experience suffering by only offering one platform? Can you drive productivity with a device choice? And do Mac platforms help support innovation? Because adopting Mac at scale isn't purely an IT decision, it's a business decision. So the show doesn't get super technical, but rather it's on a level that everyone can relate to. And as you all know, that's something I try and do with this podcast too. I've listened to the first few episodes and I'm excited for the rest of the season because they've already released episodes on topics such as building the business case, understanding the total cost of ownership, and collaborating in Windows-dominated workplaces. And they have episodes coming out every few weeks. So if this is something that would interest you, I thoroughly recommend it. Why not give it a listen? Subscribe to We Got Your Mac wherever you get your podcasts, or go to wegotyourmac.com where you can access all the episodes and great bonus resources for business leaders like you. But today we've got an enlightening episode for everyone listening, especially for those listening in the small business sector, because joining me today is the UK Managing Director of Xero. And they are a global leader in cloud-based accounting software. And Xero has recently partnered with the Centre of Economics and Business Research, CEBR, to unveil a report that dives into a critical issue: the reluctance of small businesses to fully embrace technology. And as a small business owner myself that embraces so many different technologies, I'm fascinated, intrigued, and baffled by some of the findings in this report, because despite the digital age sweeping across industry, the report highlighted a startling divide, and that is the smallest businesses lag significantly behind their larger counterparts in adopting digital tools. And I've got to be honest, this completely contradicts my belief system. I always thought that larger enterprises were a little bit sluggish, takes longer to get anything done, especially adopting new technologies, whereas younger, more agile companies and startups, etc., they don't have that hassle, that red tape, so they can move quicker. But that is what I thought. And this report challenged that belief because it unveiled a gap that is not just a matter of preference. It represents a potential hindrance to economic growth. So today I've invited Alex to join me on the show to share his insights from the report, exploring the barriers to digital adoption, the undeniable economic benefits of digitalisation, and also a little practical advice for small businesses that are striving to overcome this digital drag that it's often referred to. So whether you are a small business owner, an entrepreneur, or simply keen on understanding the intersection of technology, economic growth, business growth, and more, this episode promises to be both thought-provoking and hopefully informative too. So buckle up and hold on tight as I beam your ears all the way to the UK, where you can dive in with us and discover how digital transformation can be the key to unlocking new potentials for your small business. So a massive warm welcome to the show. Can you tell everyone listening a little about who you are and what you do?
Sure. Thanks for having me, Neil. I'm Alex von Schirmeister. I'm the Managing Director for Xero, the software accounting platform here in the UK, as well as for the rest of Europe, Middle East, and Africa. As you can probably already hear, I'm not a Brit originally. I've lived in the UK for over 7 years now. But I was actually born and raised in Mexico in a very Germanic household. So I'm kind of half Mexican, half German living in Britain.
That's awesome. I feel like there's a bit of a backstory there, a bit of an origin story how you got into tech.
maybe one for the next podcast.
Yeah, 100%, man. And one of the things I want to talk about today was the current state of digital adoption among small business in the UK, particularly highlighting some of those key findings from your recent report at Xero and the Centre of Economics for Business Research. Just to set the scene for our conversation today, can you tell me a little bit more about that report?
Yeah, listen, we do surveys on small businesses all the time, Neil, right? And the reality, they're very much the genesis of our business and who we work with. And even internally at Xero, we often say, small businesses or small and medium enterprises. The reality is a sole trader business with a single employee or a business with 5 employees, 10 employees, 20, up to 250 are completely different dimensions, if you will. And so in this study, we took particular attention to the smallest of the businesses, right? Businesses with fewer than 10 employees. These are a massive part of the economy, right? They contribute 934 billion to the economy. They contribute, over 1/4 of all the employments in the economy. So it's really, really important to understand these businesses. And what we found, unfortunately, and we call it the digital drag. What we found, unfortunately, is when you look at those businesses and you compare them to the larger small businesses, the ones with more than 10 employees, there's a significant gap. Probably the most striking of the statistics we saw is fewer than 30% of these businesses say that they have increased their adoption of digital tools since 2019, whereas 69% of larger businesses have. And so there's just a significant shift in adoption of technology. And the challenge with that, Neil, as you can imagine, is there are very tangible benefits to adopting technology for a business of any size, but especially for small businesses. And so these small businesses are missing out on those tangible benefits and they're getting left.
And I've got to ask, I'm curious here, in your experience, what are the most significant barriers preventing small businesses from fully embracing digital tools? And how do these barriers differ between, let's say, those smaller SMEs and larger ones? What's happening here?
Look, there are many barriers. One of my favorite quotes, I wish it was my quote, I can't take any credit for it, but I definitely use it a lot, is the 7 most expensive words in business are, we have always done it this way. And what that means, it's inertia, right? When you're a small business, you're so busy just even trying to keep afloat, you don't have a lot of time to question your current processes. You don't have a lot of time to challenge your current way of doing things. And as long as it's kind of working and doing what it should do, innovating beyond that or challenging that is really, really hard. And so I think the time dimension, right? These businesses are so busy, they just don't find the time, is quite significant. The other element is sometimes you just don't know what you don't know. Like they may not be aware of those tangible benefits I'm talking about. They may not be talking to other businesses to find out. And so in a sense, like they're missing the memo, if you will.
Yeah.
So part of the challenges that we have as an industry is, how do you reach out to them and keep them educated on, look, here's some of the things that you should be looking at. And more importantly, here are practical case studies of other businesses that have done that and the benefits they have seen.
And the report also suggests, on a much more positive note, that substantial economic boost from increased digital adoption right across there. So can you elaborate on how digitalization directly contributes to the growth and job creation within the small business sector? Because it is a huge talking point right now, and I'd love to shine a light on this sector.
When you look at this individual benefits of what digitalization means, look, when we talk to businesses that have digitalized or have adopted more technology, 38% of them tell us that it makes their business run more smoothly. 31% attribute a gain in productivity to that technology. 29% actually tell us it helped them stay in business outright, period. 27% tell us it gave them better cash flow, right? So the list goes on. If you take some of these benefits and extrapolate or do kind of a back of the envelope calculation and say, let's assume these under 10 employee businesses that are in this digital drag, we're able to catch up with the same level of digitalization as a top 20% in that same cohort. Just that catch up is worth 77 billion to the UK economy. And as you can imagine, jobs, employment, as well as purchasing power for the people involved.
And what strategies would you recommend for small businesses that might be listening today? Maybe they're still a little bit hesitant about digital transformation. How can they be convinced of the tangible benefits? And as I ask that question, it's difficult to believe that people are not thinking this way. I'm completely the opposite, the other side of the spectrum. But how can they be convinced?
Look, my number one recommendation, Neil, always is talk to your own peers that are probably the most credible source of information. Because Alex, the MD of Xero, tells you to that, fine, I do. But if they don't want to believe me, talk to the shop next door, right? Talk to one of your competitors that is doing it. Talk to bodies that you trust. There are significant kind of organizations that help small businesses, and most of them will have heaps of research in terms of what it is, and they'll be able to give you some credible resources. The second thing, and I alluded to this notion of you just don't have the time. The one thing I find works is you almost need to carve it out. I don't know, make your Monday morning from 8 to 10 your thinking time or your focus time, your research, but very specifically separate out the time you spend to run your business versus the time you spend to think about your business. And then the third one, and we're lucky at Xero in the sense that we work with a lot of small businesses directly, and we work with a lot of accountants and bookkeepers. Accountants and bookkeepers are an unbelievable source of knowledge and wisdom, not only in helping you run your business and manage your books, but they're often very closely in touch with some of the technologies that they see amongst their client base that you should be looking at. And so just from a lean on your accountant and bookkeeper to help you with some of the technology adoption is definitely the third advice I would give in this area.
And it's funny you should say that. When I first started my business, I think way back in 2015, and wanted a good way of liaising with my accountant, keeping everything up and running, making it digital, the first thing they said was, you need Xero. And I've been a customer ever since. And I'm curious, based on your study and the conversations you're having with high performers all around the world, what can smaller businesses listening learn from, let's say, the top 20% of SMEs that have successfully embraced these digital tools? Are there any common traits or strategies that they might be sharing based on those conversations you're having?
Yeah, I think the most common trait is many of these businesses took the plunge, took the decision. Right now, what triggered them to take the plunge may be very different. Some of them would have gone through a more strategic review of what their options are. We all know many of them were forced into digital adoption because of circumstances such as COVID. You have a lot of businesses that were pure physical retail that were forced to go online because of COVID. But the reality is that forced adoption of technology has been a real godsend for them, right? In the sense of they now have multi-channel distribution, etc. The other thing I would say is it's really important for businesses, when we talk about digital adoption or adoption of technology, it sounds quite onerous. I don't think a business needs to boil the ocean. There are oftentimes very small, specific tactical things that a business can do that will help, right? One of the things we see it, just to take a Xero example, when a business that has Xero as a bookkeeping platform turns on their bank feed, which means they connect their bookkeeping platform Xero with their bank feed, all of a sudden, your invoices and your payments and your bank statements get reconciled automatically. Well, that takes hours to do manually. So all of a sudden, you're gifted all these hours back, which you can then use to kind of build your business again, right? So that's a very simple step. You don't need to boil the ocean, but just turning on the bank feeds. Some businesses, and again, COVID would have helped here, some businesses were cash only and were forced to suddenly adopt a card payment methodology. Well, guess what? All of a sudden they realized that it wasn't just the fact that they could now take cards, but it started attracting new business they weren't getting prior to that. And so small little steps in increments oftentimes are the best way to start a journey.
So again, for any small business owner who has limited resources, they're listening to our conversation today, any other practical steps that you think they could take to start a digital journey and how they can maybe maximize the impact of these initial steps? Because 2024 could be a game changer for them, couldn't it?
Well, I think it will be. And the reality is every year is a game changer, Neil. Our world is getting more competitive.
Yeah.
I always tell small businesses, look, if you don't do it, somebody else will. And so it's almost a question of making sure you stay ahead. The regulatory environment keeps changing. We know, certainly with the recent autumn statement, there were changes to the tax code and there will be more. So it's important to kind of stay abreast of those. And then the reality is we are still in an economic crisis, right? We do still have high interest rates and kind of cost of living. So it's important to kind of just take that step. It really is a matter, and that's why we call it the digital drag. It really is a matter of keeping up. Look, if I had to say one thing that any small business should do today, right now, reach out to someone else you trust and talk to other people, right? Just surround yourself with other people that may have a point of view. We work closely with an organization called Small Business Britain, for example. And Small Business Britain runs a program called Small and Mighty. We participate as sponsors and mentors in that program. And it's just that. It's helping small businesses through mentorship and giving them tips and tools and advice. Whether they then end up in buying a Xero subscription is almost besides the point. It really is helping them to understand how digital transformation and adoption of technology can help the business.
And as a business owner myself, one of the things I'm most passionate about is being the master of my own destiny and being responsible for that. But outside of that, do you think there's a role for government and industry bodies that should be playing in? It may be better supporting and accelerating digital adoption among small businesses. Do you think they could play a better role in that too?
Absolutely, Neil. And look, one of the things that we speak to government about quite a bit at Xero is make sure that they take the challenges of small business to heart. Not just that they say they're taking it to heart, but really take it to heart. And the best example of that, Neil, is whenever you speak to small businesses, the number one topic that is going to bubble up immediately is concerns about cash flow. And the biggest reason for concern about cash flow is late payments, right? Small businesses are just not being paid on time. We've been talking to the government for a long time around what more they could do to mandate better payment terms or better payment behaviors, especially amongst the larger PLCs, for example. There definitely is a role for government to play in terms of both providing some of the infrastructure and some of the regulations to allow digitalization. I think open banking and open finance is a very good example where, thanks to the open banking mandates in the UK, you have had more advancement in fintech than in many, many other countries. But on the other hand, regulation and facilitating digitalization, such as making tax digital, is really important to also drive digitalization and help small businesses along on a journey.
And we are at that magical time of the year where we're looking at a new year of opportunities and how we can do things differently, how we can do things better. So looking ahead, how do you envision the landscape of digital adoption evolving for small businesses in 2024? And are there any other emerging technologies or trends that SMEs should be particularly aware of, or anything that you've noticed that excites you?
Yeah, I would say, Neil, look, it's digitalization is really, it's an exponential curve, right? It only ever accelerates every year. It's not slowing down, and it certainly won't slow down in 2024.
Yeah.
So I think the one trend everybody's talking about currently, and again, I would encourage every small business to, if not adopt it, at least play with it, experiment with it, is artificial intelligence. And not artificial intelligence to replace your business, but artificial intelligence to enhance or to amplify certain processes you already have internally to give you time back. And as you can imagine, we're using quite a bit of artificial intelligence internally within Xero to automate certain processes. At the same time, look, I'm a technologist at heart. I have been for over 20 years in my career. The more technology accelerates, I find, the more the human element becomes equally important as a counterweight. And so, I talked earlier about talk to your colleagues or talk to your peers. That human connection is only getting as important at the same time as some of the digitalization and stuff like artificial intelligence, for example.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. And if we take this simple podcast interview today, I've got Fathom AI that's plugged into the back end, where when we finish, it will give me a transcript, it'll give me key takeaways that I can then put into Gen AI to help with creating additional content alongside the blog posts, and there's other tools out there like Descript, which makes it so easy too. There's so many very affordable tools that can completely transform your workflow. And a lot of people say to me, how do you record 7 interviews a week and get them out? It's only because of these tools that make my life so much easier. I prefer just sitting down here and enjoying a conversation with someone that's such as yourself. There's so much help out there, isn't there?
But that's the beauty of it. And I think your example is exactly that, Neil. Right? It hasn't taken away the very conversation we're having. If anything, it gives you more time to make this conversation higher quality. Yeah, because you've kind of automated some. And when I speak to bookkeepers or accountants, and they sometimes worry about whether their role is going to disappear with artificial intelligence, my very clear answer is, on the contrary. Some of the processes that you follow to reconcile accounts, they may get automated. Yeah. But that only gives you more time to have a high quality conversation to provide added value advice to your customers. So the role of that connection is only getting more important.
I think that's a beautiful moment to end on. But before I do let you go, I'm going to have a bit of fun with you now. We are right in the heart of the holiday season. We're going to be listening to music, reading books, watching movies. What would you like to leave everyone listening with today? Anything you'd like to recommend for our Spotify playlist or Amazon wish list? What would you like to leave everyone with?
I just, a lot of people get those kind of end of year, here's what you've listened all year long kind of lists. And I must say half of mine was a hostile takeover by my children, because I think in the kitchen, our Alexa is connected to my Spotify account. So I don't listen to as much Taylor Swift as you may think, Neil, but that's what they listen. I listen to a lot of French music and a lot of Mexican music, for example, right? And lately I've been listening to a lot of Johnny Hallyday, which I don't know how well known he is in this country, but he's like the French Elvis Presley, if you will. Sadly, he passed away a few years ago. So yeah, there you go. I would encourage people to go and listen to some foreign music. Just get a taste of something different whenever they tire of Taylor Swift.
I absolutely love that. Also love the fact that you are a secret Swiftie. I'm not having any of those excuses. I think for anyone listening wanting to maybe dig a little bit deeper on the report that we talked about, find out how you or Xero can help them, where would you like to point everyone listening?
Well, listen, we have many resources, as you can imagine. Xero blog is a very good destination where we publish all of our kind of thought leadership and our publishings and our papers. And so without being a Xero customer, you can always go to Xero blog and just read up on everything we publish. And that will typically have links to articles and to kind of publications like the one we just talked about today, Neil.
Awesome. Well, I'll add links to that so people can find it nice and easily. And in that study, I do urge people to check it out. Some big stats in there, such as I think if all small businesses digitalize at the pace of the top 20%, then small businesses turnover would be 77.3 billion higher, creating a further 885,000 jobs. Huge food for thought there. And we even had a chance to share a few great tunes and unveil you as a Swiftie at the end too. But thank you so much for joining me today. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Neil, for having me.
And that brings us to the end of another episode of Tech Talks Daily. A huge thank you to Alex for joining us today, sharing so many valuable insights on the importance of digital adoption in small businesses. And we've learned how embracing technology is not just about staying relevant, it's a strategic move, a move that could significantly boost revenue and foster job creation. And at a time of economic uncertainty, what a powerful message that is. And I think this conversation goes beyond just understanding the latest trends. It's a call to action. So whether you are running a small business or part of a larger organisation, for me, the message is crystal clear. The future is digital and the time to adapt is right now. So please remember to check out that report. There are a few fascinating facts in there about how technology is revolutionising the business landscape. But as always, let me know your thoughts. techblogwriter@outlook.com, Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, just @NeilCHughes. We'll keep this conversation going. But thank you as always for listening, and until next time, don't be a stranger.